Good afternoon, everybody. So for those of you who don't know what that bell was about, that's John. He's our official opener on Fridays for yoga class. So when you hear the bell, you'd better be in your seat. Because he's ready. Thank you, John. Thank you. Yeah. Wow, thank you all for coming. This is amazing. I had no idea so many people were interested in feet. It's pretty shocking, right? Pretty shocking. So how many of you have foot issues? So nobody. Okay, nobody. Yeah. So as you know, for those of you who've had foot issues, it affects your whole body. It affects everything you do. And yet we don't really give a lot of thought to our feet on a regular basis, right? We only pay attention when there's something wrong. Okay, so my name's Robin, in case you didn't know that. And I've been doing movement therapy for almost 30 years. Teaching here for 20. I've been a massage therapist for 30 years, so working with people doing that. And I consider myself a human movement optimist, because I believe we can change no matter what our age, no matter what our abilities or disabilities, because our cells are always changing. Everything in our body is always changing. If your hair's still growing, if your fingernails and toenails are still growing, then everything in your body has the opportunity to change. So we're going to talk a little bit about how feet impact the rest of our body today. How many, just a show of hands, how many of you have done level 1 feet first with me? Okay, so a good amount of people. Okay, great. All right, so my only thing here is going to be the tech, so you'll have to bear with me if I'm not very good with the technology. I always like to start with a fun fact. So we typically, most of us will walk 100,000 miles in our lifetime. I'm exhausted too, right? Right? I'm not done yet, but I'm still exhausted. Yeah, that's a lot of miles that we put on our bodies, right? And the interesting thing is, we don't give a thought to our feet. We think about our shoes, right? So when you're going to take a walk, do you ever think about your feet? No. Yes, you do. Good. All right. So we have someone who said yes. She gives some thought to her feet. Excellent. Most of us, though, we think about, well, which shoes should I be wearing? Do I need something with a thick sole? Do I need something that's waterproof, et cetera, et cetera? So we're going to talk a little bit here about our feet. And this is one of my favorite quotes. So Leonardo da Vinci, right? We all know who he was. Does anybody not know who Leonardo was? Yeah. So I think this was amazing that he said that the foot is a masterpiece of engineering, because it is. It's a very complicated piece of our anatomy. So we're going to look inside the foot now. We're getting into my favorite realm, which is anatomy. So I love to talk about anatomy. So this is how beautiful the foot is. We've got 26 bones in each foot. That's 26 in each. That's 52 bones in your feet. That's a quarter of all the bones in your body. That's pretty amazing, right? We've got 33 joints in the feet, in each foot. Now, you don't have a joint, so this is just a design issue. You don't have a joint if you don't have a movement requirement, right? So think about your thigh bone, right? It's a big, long bone that goes from your hip to your knee. There's no joint in the middle of that thigh bone, because you don't need to move it and bend it. But you've got 33 of them in your feet. Your arches, now we talk a lot in yoga class on Fridays about arches. There are 3 arches. There's one on the inside of your foot, there's one on the outside of your foot, and there's one that runs across the middle of your foot. And the 3 of those arches create what's called a dome. So your foot actually domes up. That is what we consider the arch. When we talk about the arch, we're actually talking about the dome of the foot. Now we've got hundreds of muscles in the foot. Interesting, some of them live in the foot itself, and some of them go to your leg. Of the muscles that live in your foot, there are only 4 on the top of your foot. There are 20 on the bottom of your foot. And this is going to be important when I start to talk a little bit about movement. Now you've got 200,000 nerve endings, more than that in your feet. That's a lot of nerve endings. Your feet are sensorially rich. And again, thinking about how we use our feet, if they're in a shoe all day, we're missing out on all of that sensation. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. Okay, so let's talk about how the foot works. Everybody who graduates from level 2 feet first, that's our final exam. So when we take a step, the first thing that happens is the foot acts like a trampoline. So this is a little hard with a microphone, but I'll try here because I always have my little prop. So when your foot, this guy's got a toe issue. When your foot comes down, let's see if we can do this. When your foot comes down, you go on your heel, and then when your foot comes down, it's got to do that. Right? It has to act like a trampoline. So the muscles and the tissue in your foot have to actually get suppressed a little bit. And then when you go to push off, that same foot that was just a trampoline is now a rigid lever. It's there to push you off. So that's about toe strength as opposed to toe and foot flexibility. So what I'm saying here in this slide, aside from a couple people having a lot of fun, is that your feet have to be flexible and strong. And I like to think of that as resilience, right? So resilience is the balance between strength and flexibility. Okay, I told you the tech was going to be an issue, and it is. Okay, so why is that important if you don't have foot issues, right? Because your feet are just the bottom of the chain. Everything up is affected by your feet. So if your feet can't be flexible, if they can't receive the impact when you step forward, they can't receive that impact, they're going to transfer that job up to your knee, up to your hip, or up to your back. I've seen a lot of people, again, I've been doing this kind of work for 30 years. A lot of people come in with knee issues, back issues, and we work on their feet. And it definitely contributes. I'm not saying all issues, but a lot of them are. Okay, so let's talk about the importance of foot fitness a little bit more, shall we? Why do we need resilient feet? Who has a problem or a concern or a interest in balance? Like everybody, right? Of course, yeah. What is balance? It's basically not falling. Right? That's what balance is. It's basically not falling. So when we're working on our balance, again, our feet need to be flexible and they need to be strong. So we need to have that resilience in the feet. Regular foot exercises will help with that. Feet First is the class that I've run in the past. I'm running it again this fall. We learned some foot exercises. Wearing shoes that don't do a lot of the work for your foot is super important. Going barefoot is important. And balance is a skill. So I'll say this about that. I've been teaching yoga for over 20 years. And in yoga class, in a standard yoga class, not the seated one that we do here, anybody know what the tree pose is? Right? Yeah, right? So you stand on one leg and you learn how to balance. That does not help you when you're walking. Balancing in tree pose, practicing tree pose, just makes you really good at balancing in tree pose. It doesn't do much for when you're walking, right? So when I'm walking, I am in motion. I'm taking that whole anatomy of the foot, I'm putting that in motion, and it has a whole different feel to it. So the only way to get really good at balance in motion is to put your balance in motion. Okay, the next reason why you need resilient feet is circulation. So circulation, we all have issues with circulation at one point or another, especially in our feet. Your feet are the farthest geographically from your heart, right? So when you have strong muscles in your feet, they'll actually help to pump the blood back from your feet. If you've got tension or tightness in your feet, it's going to compress some of the blood vessels there. That can be a problem, right? So we definitely want to work on that for circulation. Now, I will say this. Oh, ouch. I was hoping I'd get that reaction. Nerve function. Now, blood vessels and nerves are like birds of a feather. They travel in the same way. Yeah, yikes is right. So working on resilient feet, getting strength and flexibility in your feet is going to help either improve nerve function. If you've got neuropathy, it can slow the progress of that neuropathy. It can prevent it. And together with circulation, we're doing the same exercises. It's a twofer. You're getting double benefit for one issue. Now, the other thing, and we kind of are getting to, I'm hearing more of this in the news, that nerve functioning is greatly affected by our circulation, and that has an impact on brain health, which I'll talk about in a little bit. The other thing I wanted to mention here about sensation, because we're talking about nerves, but sensation as well, is that your feet are rich in proprioceptors. Anybody hear of that term, proprioception? Proprioception is your body's understanding of where you are in space. So all the proprioceptors in my body, I've got some in my knees, my hips, my thighs, I've got tons in my feet. Right now are saying you're standing up. Yours are saying that you're sitting down. So our proprioceptors tell us where we are in space. We'll talk a little bit more about these in a moment because they're very important. All right, so let's get off this sticky slide. Okay, so like I said, your feet are sensorily rich, right? You've got 200,000 nerve endings. That's what these little guys are. Right? So you got all these nerve endings in your feet. And the proprioception in your feet is predominantly here in the outside of your foot, right? So on the outer edge. And if you think about it, when we have falls, it's when we're walking, right? When we're putting our weight forward, we would fall to the outside of the foot. We never fall to the inside of the foot because we have that other foot to catch us. Right? So when we take a fall, when we go down, it's on the outside of the foot. Now, isn't it interesting that most of the sensors are located out here, right? Again, I want you to think about if you're in a shoe that doesn't allow you to feel in the bottoms of your feet, you're dampening this. You're turning the volume down on that, so your feet aren't able to sense as well. Okay. And your feet are always talking to your brain. So what I said a few minutes ago, right? About your brain being connected to your feet. 70% of the movement information from your body. So that's when I'm walking, 70% of that is coming from your feet. 10% is coming from your eyes, and the other 20 is coming from your vestibular system. Right? So we pay a lot of attention to our eyes, right? We get our eye, everybody gets their eye exams, right? At some point we start getting hearing exams. If we can't hear, we put in hearing aids. But again, we don't pay a whole lot of attention to our feet. What we do instead is we get more highly engineered shoes or footwear to help support the functioning that we've lost, as opposed to developing better functioning in the feet. Okay. So let's talk about a few other reasons why foot fitness is important. Plantar fasciitis. I need a show of hands because that's a big one. Yeah, had it or have it, right? So either had it or have it. I've had a bout of it myself, and boy, it's a bugger when you get it. So plantar fasciitis, if you don't know what it is, good for you. Plantar fasciitis, when it starts out, it's an inflammation of the connective tissue in the bottom of your foot, right? So the connective tissue in the bottom of your foot is called your fascia. Actually, the connective tissue in all of parts of your body is your fascia, but that's another talk. So when your plantar fascia gets inflamed, that's the beginning of plantar fasciitis. If you don't do anything to fix or correct or support that problem, that plantar fascia, instead of being inflamed, it starts to thicken and it gets very rigid. And when it thickens and gets rigid, it pulls on your heel bone and it creates a little heel spur. which is incredibly painful. So strength and flexibility of the fascia, of the tissue in the bottoms of your feet, are going to prevent that from happening. And for those who've had plantar fasciitis, you've rolled on the frozen golf ball, you've done all those kinds of things. It's very painful to come back, but movement is the cure, right? So if movement is the cure, movement is the prevention. Arthritis. So, and this goes not just for the feet, but we happen to be talking about feet right now. Joints are supported by muscles. So if your muscles are strong, your joints are going to feel better, right? You can have arthritis and no pain. You can have arthritis and have some pain. But I'm willing to bet that if you do more foot exercises, if you have arthritis in the joints of your feet, if you do more foot exercises, that arthritis is going to bother you a lot less. Bunions and hammertoes. Put these two together because they are usually caused by a combination of some muscles in your foot being overly tight and some muscles in your foot being overly loose or relaxed, right? So if one is too tight, it's going to pull your toes into this kind of claw foot. In bunions, it's the muscle right along the inside of your arch that usually is not strong enough, and it allows your first metatarsal to kind of swing out, and that creates that bunion. So I know I've had people say to me, "Oh, I got my bunions from my mother." I'm here to tell you, you didn't. Your mother might have had bunions, but you didn't get them from her. You might have gotten the connective tissue issue in your foot, or maybe you all liked the same kind of pretty shoes. You know, who knows? Stress fractures. So talk a little bit about that. I've worked with several people who recently actually who have had stress fractures. A stress fracture is different than a break in the bone, like a impact fracture, right? So if I bang my arm on the podium here and I break my arm bone, that's one kind of a break. A stress fracture is when my foot, the muscles and the tissue in my foot can't handle the load of either walking or running, and it creates the fracture in a bone that never hits the ground, right? You get what I'm saying? So these middle bones, I don't know if you guys in the back can see, stress fractures usually happen in the metatarsals, which are the middle bones. They are bones that do not contact the ground. So how in the heck do they fracture? It's because the tissue is not strong enough to support it, and there is a tensile strength there that just breaks that bone. Knees, hips, and back, I talked a little bit about that. Right? Remember the Jenga tower, right? So whatever is not working in your feet, if when I take that step forward, if I'm not able to absorb the impact of the ground, if I'm not able to push off and push myself forward, I'm going to use my knees, I'm going to use my hips, and I'm going to use my back to propel myself. I'm going to overuse parts of my body that shouldn't be used for that kind of movement. Okay. So you're saying, well, that's all great, but now what the heck am I supposed to do? Right? So we'll talk a little bit about kind of next steps. So I hinted a little bit about natural footwear. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. In Feet First Level 1, we have like a whole day that we talk about footwear. Foot exercises. Again, Feet First Level 1 and 2, we talk about and we learn foot exercises. I'm also planning to run, don't tell Deb because I haven't asked her yet, but I'm planning on running an ongoing foot fitness class next year. The requirement is to finish Feet First Level 1 and 2, so you get like the whole baseline of it. The other thing is to go barefoot. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, I'm not going barefoot. It's November in Massachusetts. There's ways we can go barefoot here. And then, of course, did I mention the Feet First course? I might have mentioned it once or twice. All right. So let's talk a little bit about footwear, one of my favorite things. Okay. So I am going to give you my 3 Fs. These are the musts for footwear. It's got to be foot-shaped. So when you look at your shoe, I brought a shoe. You guys know I love props. When you look at your shoe, can you all see the toe of that shoe? It's wide. It's wider than the whole rest of the shoe. That is a foot-shaped shoe. That's going to allow my toes to spread. Most shoes, I want you all to look down at your shoes. Do your shoes come to a little bit of a point or a little bit of a taper? Do they have a little bit of a taper to them? Yes. That's going to give you a shoe-shaped foot. We want a foot-shaped shoe. I want you to say that 3 times fast, right? So my second must is that the shoe has to be flat. No rise in the shoe from heel to toe. Now, if y'all look at your shoes, you're going to say, oh, yeah, it's flat. It's a flat shoe. If you're wearing an athletic shoe, running shoe, walking shoe, or whatever, those shoes have between a 4 millimeter or a 12 millimeter rise in the heel. You're walking on a 1/2 inch heel if you're at 12 millimeters. It's in the shoe, so you don't see it. So again, foot shape, flat. And my third F is flexible. And I'll show you what I mean. The shoe has got to be able to twist and scrunch in all directions. Right? I should be able to roll up my shoe just like that. That is a flexible shoe. Why do we need a flexible shoe? So your foot can flex, exactly, right? So if I'm in a really stiff shoe, my foot is not going to be able to flex. If I'm in a shoe that is not foot-shaped, my toes aren't going to be able to spread. So when I go to push off, I have no rigid lever because it's that big toe that gives me that rigid lever. Y'all going, I got to look at my shoes when I get home. All right. So that's shoes. By the way, there are 2 more Fs, but you have to take my class to know what they are. So foot and toe exercises. Now these, there's Deb has made a handout. So at the end, you can grab a little handout. I'm giving you a few exercises that you can do. So how many of you know about toe yoga? Yeah, right? Yeah. So I know you all have shoes on, but give it a try anyway. See if you can lift your big toe away from your other toes. Kind of interesting, yeah. So you should be able to lift your big toe and keep all the others down. And then you should be able to lift all your little toes and keep the big one down. You can now, yes. What did you say? Can you say that again? You can now, yes, because you've been doing it, right? So it's practice, right? The more we practice, which is great. And then we do the opposite, right? We push the big toe down. That creates some strength in that dome, the dome of the foot that I was talking about. And the other thing you can do is work on your feet with a tennis ball. Excuse me. So working with a tennis ball, rolling the ball on your foot, standing on it, coming up and coming down on the tennis ball is an excellent way to exercise the foot. Got a couple more exercises here. So this is one you can do with your shoes. Well, maybe you can't do them with your shoes on. So I call this the Barbie foot, right? So you come up on the Barbie foot, right? Like you're wearing a big heel. Then you come up like on the dancer foot, right? So you're coming up on your toes, and then you roll over onto your toes. Simple to do all of these exercises when you're sitting watching TV, sitting knitting, having a meal, anytime you're just kind of sitting. If you're riding in the car, somebody else is driving, that's a good thing to do. And then for the ankle, because the ankle is part of the foot. The ankle is part of the foot. So can you all rotate your ankle around? Right? So you rotate your ankle around. Notice if your ankles rotate the same, the left and the right. You can do them both together. Yeah. So these are some simple exercises to start to wake up some of the muscles in your feet. Okay. And then the last piece of the exercises here, or the last piece of the program here, is that we want to create a sensation, right? So remember what I was saying about the feet talking to the brain? Constantly talking to the brain. So the more sensation you can get in the bottoms of your feet, and I know most of us think of sensation, actually, let me back that up. So if your feet have been in shoes, nice, cushy, comfy shoes for a long time, as soon as you take off your shoes and you step on something that, say, like a little piece of dirt or a little stone, right? Hurts, right? It's because our foot isn't conditioned to it. So what I'm suggesting is that walking and standing barefoot, getting more texture, more sensation, is a great way to start to fire up those nerve endings in the bottoms of your feet. One of my favorite things to do is, especially now, this is a great time of year, get some pine cones, put them in a plastic bag, put it on the floor, and walk on that bag barefoot. So you'll get the sensation, you won't get sap on your feet, which is good, but you'll get that sensation because pine cones are very uneven. If you have an issue with balance, you're going to want to hold on to something, right? So you're going to make sure you don't take a little tumble. You can do it on stones, right? So if the pine cones are a little too soft for you at some point, you can do it on stones. Put a cloth over the top of it or put a towel over the top of it before you walk on it, and then start to do that. In my house, we have a no shoe policy. So that's kind of a thing. Nobody wears their shoes in the house. So you take your shoes off when you come in, maybe got little socks with little grippy things on the bottom so you don't go sliding all over the place. But again, this is to help create more sensation in the feet. All right. And then, actually, this is the last thing I wanted to talk about. So the last thing here is the Feet First program. So it's 2 levels. We got level 1, level 2. They're 4-week programs. In the first part of the program, we talk a lot about the anatomy of your feet. Excuse me. And we look at exercises and how to improve your strength and flexibility. We talk a lot about footwear. I think I mentioned that as well. And how your footwear literally shapes your feet. Level 2, we talk more about balance and mobility and stability, and we take that information that we learned in level 1 and we bring it up into the knees and the hips and how movement affects your knees and affects your hips. And we it's all experiential. So you're not all sitting like this. We're sitting for like maybe 10 minutes and then everybody's up and we're doing all of these exercises to actually get to feel it in your body. So that is what I have to say. So this is coffee and conversation, right? So I've been doing all the conversating. And now I'd love to get some questions. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to run around with the mic, if that's okay.
I actually have 2 questions.
Yeah. So everybody can hear you.
I have tendonitis of the heel.
So she has tendonitis of her heel.
Do you think it's something connected with either the way I'm walking or the way my feet are? My shoes are made of surgical supplies because I'm diabetic.
Yep.
Is that correct? Is this tendonitis caused by the position that I'm walking?
So I can't diagnose your tendonitis. But what I will say, and this applies to any foot condition, so if you're working with a podiatrist, you're in a special orthotic, you have some special appliance that you're using on your foot, this, what I'm talking about now is an and proposition. So do those things and start to strengthen your feet and start to do more flexibility exercises with your feet. So you can do both together. So it's sort of like, I think of it like this. If you have an issue with your wrists, say you hurt your wrist and you put on a brace, right? Would you wear that brace for the rest of your life? If you had a doctor that said to you, you're going to have to wear this brace for the rest of your life, I hope you would walk out of the office. Yeah, but we put orthotics in our shoes for the rest of our lives. We don't give a thought to, oh, well, what can I do to get out of the orthotic? Or what can I do to minimize the amount of time I need to be in the orthotic? So I hope that answers your question.
Exercises that I have been given, but I'm wondering, I wanted to know exactly what the cause of it is.
I can't answer that. Yeah, but thank you for that question. All right, I saw you. Yep, I'm going to run back there. I do have shoes on. No.
I have multiple issues with my feet, but one of them is my doctor has told me never to walk barefoot. I don't have fat pads on the bottom of my foot, so I walk on bone. So he said I can't walk flat because of walking on bone. He said it's dangerous to do that.
Well, I think there are some things you could do. There are ways to wear a more minimal kind of shoe with more padding. If you have an issue with the fat pads, and for a lot of us, the fat pads, so you might not know this, but on the bottom of your bones of your foot are these little pads. They're like little cushions, right? So, and I've heard over the years, oh, your fat pads, as you age, your fat pads get thin. I don't think it's so much a problem with aging as it is atrophy. So if you don't put pressure on those fat pads, they are not going to stay robust. So you can wear a different kind of shoe with more padding in the shoe, but without a lot of support. So I guess that's all I can really say about that. Yeah.
And going along the same lines, I was going to ask you the question of how has the medical community responded to the programs that you're offering? And I know that everybody in this room has probably spoken to their doctors about it, as Diane has. But I'm a retired nurse, and I have a daughter who's deeply involved with athletic training and whatnot. And she has blended the athletic trainers with the physical therapist. And I really support what you're doing, and I hope that I'm, thanks to Steve, I've continued to do those foot exercises. And I had plantar fasciitis years ago, and I've never gone back there, and I never will. But I do have to wear supportive shoes when I'm out in public because I have balance issues now, so I need my foot covered. But I do try to get some barefoot time in, and there's nothing like a foot massage.
So again, thank you for that, because again, this isn't an either or proposition. I'm not saying throw your shoes away and go barefoot, because that's a recipe for disaster. Probably 14 years ago now, I think it was like 2010 when Vibram first came out. Was it 2010? Yeah, so 2010-ish, the barefoot running craze started to take off. Anybody hear about that? Like barefoot shoes, right? So what happened was, people went from a highly structured shoe, and when I say a highly structured shoe, I mean a shoe that's got a lot of cushioning, arch support, pronation, supination connection, all the stability control and all of that. And they said, I'm going to put on these little things that like have nothing in them, and I'm going to go for a 10-mile run. So could you predict that they were going to get hurt? Right, of course, because they didn't condition their foot. So the point is, this is not an either or, it's an and. So if I need to wear shoes, if I'm doing pickleball, if I'm doing Zumba, if I have an issue with balance and I've got these shoes that are helping me, keep wearing those shoes, but train yourself with the exercises, train yourself with the stretches so that your feet get stronger, so that you'll need to rely on that less and less.
I have a question with my toes at night. They're like numb.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it circulation? I don't know.
That's a really good question. I don't know that I can answer that. So does it happen only at night when you're in bed?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's gonna
You feel like it's circulation. Are your bed sheets tucked in really tight?
Yeah.
Yeah, untuck them. Yeah, so when your sheets are tucked in really tight, so here's my foot, right? When I'm lying down, if you lie down, your feet are kind of like that, right? If you tuck your sheets in really tight, I love this. I was taught to make hospital corners too, but I've thrown that out. So you tuck your sheets in really tight, your foot goes into that position because it has no choice. Try it. It's free, right? And there's no side effects, except for maybe cold feet.
Nerve damage, will these exercises help?
So it depends. So sometimes nerves can regenerate. It depends on the level of nerve damage. What I said before about circulation and nerve function going together, so nerves and blood vessels go together. So if you get better circulation, you could improve that some. It can also stop the progression. So if you've got a neuropathy, if you've got a condition that is going to worsen over time, this can help stop the progression of that or slow it down. It won't stop it, but it can help slow it down. I saw somebody else's hand. Yep.
At night, when I wake up in the morning, I don't know if it's not a neuropathy, but maybe it's because the sheets are too tight, too.
You got
Is-
sheets too.
Yeah,
Okay.
I get like a tingling just in the toes.
Tingling just in the toes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Try the sheets. Try the sheets and get back to me.
How does neuropathy usually start?
Oh, well, neuropathy can have a lot of causes, right? So that would be kind of a tough thing for me to answer. Yeah, I'll just kind of leave it at that. So there could be medication, could be certain medical conditions, could be your sheets.
Yeah, because I never have any problem
You
except
never have a problem.
when.
Okay, so when you're walking
when I-
and doing
no.
Okay, okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
try
you.
it. Try the sheets. All right. Yeah.
What causes athlete's foot?
What causes athlete's foot? Well, it's
I get it sometimes.
you get it sometimes. So athlete's foot, that's a little above my pay grade, right? So it's usually caused by a kind of a moist environment. So getting, so some of you know about toe socks. I didn't bring any of my toe socks, although I'm wearing a pair. So I can show you. So this is what I love about toe socks. Do you all know what toe socks are? Okay, so they're socks that instead of having just one thing you slide your foot in, they've got individual little pockets for your toes. That can help because it kind of pulls the moisture away. So a lot of people with any kind of fungus in the feet, it starts between the toes. So this will keep the toes apart and can help with it. Itching and redness, yeah. Try some toe socks. So Amazon has them really cheap. Like, just type in toe socks and like a million options will come up. And then tell them I sent you. Robin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The Robin discount. Right.
You can buy sheet and blanket lifters on Amazon. They go in the foot of your bed, and it kind of is like a U. So you tuck it in, and you drape your sheets over it, and you can have them tucked in on the side.
Did you all hear that? This is awesome. I love that. So there's sheet and blanket lifters on Amazon, and you put them at the bottom of your bed, and you tuck your sheets in that way. But it lifts them up. Thank you. That's awesome. I got to include that next time.
What do you think about wearing flip-flops?
I hate flip-flops. I wear them a lot. Okay. So the reason I hate flip-flops, I don't want anybody's back. Okay. So the problem with flip-flops, I'm kidding. I have a pair that I wear when I go on the sand to get to the water. That's the only time I wear them. So the problem with flip-flops is that when you have that little thing between your toes and you have nothing supporting the rest of the shoe, every time you take a step, your foot is doing this. Your toes are doing that. They're gripping. Now you may say, well, my feet feel good though. What's happening to your calves? What's happening to your knees? What's happening to your hips? Flip-flops are not shoes. It's in the word, right? Flop. Flip, flop. That's what you're doing, flipping and flopping. So I think flip-flops are a bad idea. That's my personal, okay, we got flip-flop aficionados now, right?
What about Crocs?
What about Crocs? I actually like Crocs for a couple of reasons. So as long as you wear your Crocs with the band across the back that keeps it on your foot, the thing I like about Crocs is that they have that nice wide toe box, right? So if anybody who has a pair of Crocs, you can spread your toes out nice and wide in the Crocs. And it is a flat shoe. which is really cool. So Crocs are basically, there might be a tiny little lift in a Croc, but it's not a lot. And for people, there was somebody back there who had a problem with the fat pads. A Croc would be a good option for that because it's got some good cushioning. So I actually do like Crocs. And they come in an array of colors, yes. So ditch the flip-flops and go for the Crocs.
What causes a bunion, which I have? Do you ever get rid of it, and how do you treat it?
Wow, okay. Great question. So, what causes a bunion? Sometimes, and sometimes not. So I'll give you the more scientific part of this. So can you all see, I know it's hard from the back, so you can see these bones right here. So those are those middle bones. What happens when you get a bunion is that this first bone, your big toe bone, that is inside your foot, starts to swing out. Oh, mine are connected, so I can't show you. It swings out this way toward the center of your body. When that bone swings out, this toe goes that way. That's what causes a bunion. That's the cause of it. So, could it be your connective tissue? Sure. Could it be your muscles? Absolutely. Could it be your shoes? Definitely. So there's lots of things that can cause a bunion. Here's like a quick and dirty way to figure out if it's a shoe or not a shoe. If you look at your foot that has the bunion, if the big toe that's going in, if the toenail is straight, so it's pointing up toward the ceiling, that's a shoe issue. If the toenail is curved in toward the next toe, that is a connective tissue or a muscular or a bone issue. That's yours, yeah. So the exercises are not going to reverse a severe bunion. They can slow the progression of a bunion. They can make the bunion less painful. Wearing a foot-shaped shoe is going to be way more comfortable on a bunion because there's nothing worse than jamming a bunion against hard leather or hard canvas or something. It's very painful. So if you have a shoe that's wider in the front, and I don't mean a wide shoe, right? So I just want to make this distinction. A wide shoe is wide at this part of your foot, but not the toes. So you want a foot-shaped shoe. You want something that's really more spacious there. And quite honestly, I think that's why a lot of people start to wear flip-flops is when they have a bunion, because the bunion hits something on the sandal. Yeah.
What do you think about Birkenstock sandals? I find them extremely comfortable.
I know, right? And my Barca lounge is really comfortable too. Yeah. So a Birkenstock has a lot of arch support. It has a very stiff sole. It does have a wide toe box. And it actually has a little bit of a negative heel. So if we were to look at you, like do an x-ray of your foot in your Birkenstock, you would see that your heel is a little lower than your toes. I'm not a fan of those in terms of building or maintaining strength in your feet. So comfort, I understand what you're saying about them being very comfortable. The arch and the rigid sole are doing all the work when you're walking. So when you put your foot forward, your foot is not flexing. You're not, where is that little trampoline, right? Where's my little trampoline guy? Because that was way in the beginning, wasn't it? There we are, right? So when you take a step, the bottom of your foot is like a trampoline. It should go down. If I've got arch support in there and I've got a rigid sole, my foot's going to just go this far and no farther. So what's going to happen is that impact is going to go up into my knee and my hip and my low back.
This is just a little bit of feedback for your class. I have rigidus in my toe.
Okay.
Before your classes, I was going every 3 months for shorts. I haven't gone for over a year. Yeah. I don't have the bend, but I don't have the pain.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and that's really important. So, people asking about bunions and hammertoes, hallux rigidus is another condition where the toe doesn't flex as much. None of this is a cure-all, but if we can do some things to reduce the pain level, that makes your ability to walk, to be mobile, much, much better. So, that's a win, in my opinion. That's a win. Yeah.
So I have hallux rigidus in my right big toe. And when I started doing the foot exercises, and then Robin suggested that I try going without my orthotic, I don't need it anymore. I don't have any pain walking with it. And it's all because, not that I do it perfectly every day, but I do the foot exercises and the toes and the stuff like that. And I know that that's why I am where I am with it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellen. Yeah, that's great. So Ellen makes a really good point, which is there are no magic exercises, right, for your feet. You can get stronger, more flexible feet just by taking your shoes off and walking barefoot, because that in itself is a conditioning exercise, right? So if you're saying, I can't do all these exercises, this is like, it's going to take me 2 hours to get out of the house in the morning if I got to do all these exercises. Just taking your shoes off and using your feet is going to help with that. So thank you for that, Ellen. I know I saw, yep.
I noticed that
Hold on one second.
you talk about the internal part of the foot, which is, I'm learning a lot, but you haven't talked about the external part. In other words, creaming the feet, taking care of the skin of the feet, which is, to me, equally important.
Yeah, so, foot massage is awesome.
But how I was told to put cream or moisturizer on the skin of my feet to keep them soft, keep them pliable.
So I would say that would pertain to every part of your body, right? So if you have dry skin on your feet, yeah, well, that's a really good question. How many people moisturize their feet? A lot of people. Okay, seriously, folks, how many of you actually wash your feet in the shower? Or do you just kind of let the water do its job? Yeah, I know. So whatever you're doing to the rest of your body, if you're moisturizing things, you want to moisturize your feet as well. Now, sweat is a little bit of a moisturizer, right? It's a little bit of a moisturizer. The interesting thing is the skin on the bottoms of your feet have no sweat glands. There are no sweat glands there. So you definitely want to put cream on the bottoms of your feet. Yeah. One more. Can you talk really loud? Okay. We got a plug for reflexology. Go for it. All right. Anybody else? Yep. Go.
I just kind of want to say something. It kind of is funny because, I've always gone barefoot. As a kid, all the time. My dad was a shoemaker, and he sold shoes. And he was Italian. So I remember one day I was about 8, and we had company, all this Italian company, and I was running around barefoot. And the company's going, senza scarpa, always without shoes. And I've always been, I kick off my shoes as soon as I get home. I'm barefoot all the time. If I have to put slippers on if I'm cold, or slip a sock, but other than that, I'm always barefoot.
Thank you. Good. Thank you. All right.
I have a bullion in the back, right here, in the back of my heel.
Oh, okay.
A bunion.
Yeah.
How do I?
So, and that's called a Taylor's bunion. Yep. And so, yes, with that, that's a little trickier. We'll talk offline. Okay. Yep.
On bunions, what else can you do besides going to the doctor, have it cut, and then taking a file and trying to get it to file it down yourself?
On bunions?
On bunions.
On bunions.
To reduce it.
Yeah. So bunions are tricky. So again, if it's a severe bunion, it's usually going to be a surgical intervention, right? If it's a mild bunion, you can do some things that are going to help that, some foot exercises that can help to strengthen that. Remember I talked about the 3 arches of the foot creating a dome? So you can work to strengthen the dome of your foot. But it really depends on the severity of the bunion. There are some bunions that actually need the correction. And the issue, well, no, I won't go there. Never mind. I'll just stop there. I don't want to overstep. Did I see someone here? Yeah?
When are you going to start the next first level, level 2?
I'm so glad you asked. So October, I don't know the exact date, but coming up, 7th, thank you, Franny. So October 7th, we start Feet First Level 1. That's the 4-week introductory class. We go over the anatomy of the feet. We learn the exercises. We talk about shoes, et cetera, et cetera. And then following right after that, I'm going into Level 2. So it's coming up. So if you haven't signed up, get to the front desk and sign up. And I'll be running it again because I think there are probably more people than I thought interested in having an ongoing foot fitness class. And again, I think it's really important to get the basics before we do the foot class, and that will be much more interactive. We'll be just kind of having some fun with that. So, yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
What do you recommend for high arches?
Same thing I recommend for flat feet. Stronger feet, more flexible feet. So if you have a high arch, it's usually because the muscles in your feet are a little too rigid. So remember what I said about that balance of flexibility and strength? That's resilience. So that's really what this foot fitness is all about. It's not about building stronger feet or more flexible feet. It's about both of those things. So high arches can benefit from the same kinds of exercises that we do for flat feet. Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned the printout. Hang on one second. You mentioned the printout for the toe yoga? Yes. And where do we get those?
I see it on the front desk out there. So on your way out, just kind of do a little circle and grab a sheet. Yep. Thank you for that. I would have forgotten. Anything else? For hammer toe, yes. So again, hammer toe or claw toe is when that second joint kind of comes up, right? That is because some of the muscles on the bottom of the feet are too tight and other muscles on the bottom of the feet are not strong enough. So yes, this will help with that. Yep.
I have one question. I've been skiing for 60 years, and I went to hell with all the ski boots. But 30 years ago, I got the foam-injected boots. I could wear them all day long without any problem.
Good, good. Yeah, that was a big shift in ski technology where they did the foam-injected boots. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, they used to have to cram your feet in those horrible ski boots, right? Oh, I do remember that. Thank you for that. Anything else? We're good. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. We'll see you.